This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Jeff Melanoff. And boy, the NFL offseason's heating up, the NBA regular season's heating up, and baseball is, well, Harper has a blunder we have to talk about because it was kind of funny not to talk about because I forgot to talk about it and it was funny. Regardless, let's move on. We have the Antonio Brown sweepstakes. That's kind of what it's called and kind of makes sense. And we have some candidates that we thought were the ones that are going to be the front runners to acquire Antonio Brown, but they're actually now out of the sweepstakes, if you will. We also have some new free agents available, making this free agent offseason a lot of safety, a big safety offseason for sure. And as well, we have some NBA news regarding the Celtics and the Warriors. And, of course, a surprising 40-point performance by a Memphis Grizzly. We'll talk about that as well. And, of course, the title of this episode is basically what the main story is. There's confirmation that from another team. This is by the source from the NFL Network that says there's a confirmation from another team. So this isn't the Cardinals organization. This is another team confirming this. So I'm not sure how they can confirm this. Maybe they were talked about it with the Cardinals organization. I'm not entirely sure. But they said they're shopping Josh Rosen, the former number one pick, last year's pick for the Cardinals. I believe that was 12 last year. And so with that being said, it's still non-confirmed by the actual Cardinals organization. I don't think they'll actually confirm it until we hear an actual offer to the team from another team. I mean, it's unknown who this other team is. I think they wanted to keep themselves anonymous since they do not have any wording on who the actual team is that confirmed this. But what I see mainly here is Kyler Murray is going to go number one if this is the truth. And if Kyler Murray goes number one, if this is what happens, then would you consider Josh Rosen to be already a draft bust? Because that's an interesting question to think about, because what is the definition of a draft bust? Someone that does not go to contribute well or just disappoints with the team he gets drafted by? Or is it just in general his career is a bust? Like his career is just not how a first-round pick should have been. But the thing is, if he goes to another team and plays well, like let's just say he starts with that team where he gets traded to. If he does get traded, if he is getting shopped, that is, and he becomes a first-team All-Pro quarterback. Just example. Does that make him no longer a draft bust, or is draft bust based off the team he's drafted by? That's the question I'm trying to get answered. Because of the fact he's playing well with another team, just in this hypothetical scenario, does that, I guess he's not a draft bust there. He's not like a free agent bust there, obviously, because there's also free agent bust where you sign a guy to a big-time contract, Albert Haynesworth to the Redskins, and he does nothing. He contributes virtually nothing. And I mean, if you want to look at the Albert Haynesworth $100 million contract he signed with the Redskins, just look at his he barely practiced. He decided when he did sprints or he basically declined to do the fitness test or whatever that was in the practice. And he just kind of quit he just was a very lazy player with the Washington Redskins. And so, just moving on from that, if Josh Rosen does get traded for anything, I'm assuming they could probably get a first-round pick for him. Just because he's a first-round pick, they're probably... the thing is, I don't know who would exchange a first-round pick for Josh Rosen. I'm not saying that Josh Rosen's bad. I still think he has an opportunity to do actually pretty well when it comes down to the NFL because it's only been one season. And the one season he's had, it's with a very bad team. I mean, they're the number one overall pick for a reason. But you can't put all the blame on their failures on him. First of all, I've said this many times in podcasts before. The offensive line is terrible. That offensive line is just paper, and people just go right through that. And Josh Rosen's hiking the ball. As soon as he gets the snap, regardless if it's shotgun or a three-step drop, he's running for his life. And I don't care who even like Michael Vick might be the best case scenario if in his prime if you have that kind of offensive line because he's so good he's so evasive and he's a run-first quarterback. I mean, even maybe Lamar Jackson might be the best suit for the Cardinals in that circumstance. But then, like, Josh Rosen's not that kind of player, and it's not a bad thing. It's like there's different types of quarterbacks, obviously, and just making him scramble. And then also his receiving core ain't the best. I mean, he does have Larry Fitzgerald, but let's face it, he's in his late 30s. He's at the end of his career. He's been playing since like 2004, and you can only do so much. He's a playmaker still for sure. He's still a valuable asset to the Arizona Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald, that is. But he needs help on the opposite side of with the slot receiver or the 3 receiver or the 2 receiver. He needs help, and he doesn't have the help. Tight end I don't even know who their tight end is an unknown basically. He doesn't really get the job done on the passing game. And it just seems to me that this is just all leading to why is Rosen getting the blame for the horrible offense the Cardinals had? Because it's not his fault. You could put a little bit of the blame, risky passes, interceptions, sometimes bad decisions, yada yada yada. But you can't put all of that on him. And to think that you instantly... this is like an instant regret thing. This is like having order envy at a restaurant. You order something, you're like, oh, this is going to be so good. And then you see someone else's plate at the other table and go, oh, that looks so much better. I want that now. And just throw away your plate and ask for a new one. Ask for that order. Can't really do that in the NFL. But what seems to be happening is they see Kyler Murray as a franchise quarterback rather more than Josh Rosen as a franchise quarterback. Or they can also see him mainly as just more marketable than Josh Rosen, which is true. Like, he can definitely be more marketable than Josh Rosen. I'm not taking anything of Josh Rosen. Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 overall pick, is a little more of a draw in theory than the 10th, 11th pick in the draft, who was supposed to go number 1 overall in some mock drafts and just dropped an entire 10 spots, which is a disappointment in itself. So, with that being said, I think the main question is, who's going to be the main team that's going to be looking at Josh Rosen as a quarterback? Well, it seems like there was some rumors going around also that there is the Giants being interested. Basically, what I'm assuming that means is they want him as a backup until Eli retires. And, do what I said if you drafted a quarterback this year, Giants. You just, if the Giants drafted a quarterback this year, like a Dwayne Haskins or a Drew Lock, or even a Daniel Jones for that matter, and marinate him for a season and try to replicate what happened in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and giving him a year off, a year of learning the playbook, a year of learning the NFL speed, learning all this, and becoming a quality player. And so with Josh Rosen already having a year under his belt, giving him a year off might benefit him in the long run if he does go to the Giants. But the question is, what are the Giants giving up? A second-round pick? A third-round pick? A conditional fifth? Like, what are you doing? Because you're obviously not trading your first-round pick, which is the fifth pick in the draft, with a team that has the first pick in the draft. But, again, that fifth pick they plan to get a quarterback like a Dwayne Haskins that is supposed to be. I haven't seen anything else. Like, I've seen offensive tackle Jonah Williams being in their mock draft. I've seen Sean Gary in their mock draft. I've seen some things, but I've mainly seen Dwayne Haskins as the quarterback taken for the New York Giants, and that's just their future. Him and Barkley in the backfield and building around those two, which is a great idea in theory. Like I said, have him sit out a year behind Eli Manning, maybe not in a mentor state in general, but showing overall that when you're looking at your future, having a very young and very, very talented, a very special player in Saquon Barkley as your running back, and a very talented quarterback in Dwayne Haskins under center, I mean, that you can build a team around that. You could build a franchise around those guys. Give them an offensive line. Give them a receiving core. I mean, you have Odell Beckham Jr. there, but with all the rumors of him being shopped as well, who knows if he's even going to be there by the next season, by the beginning of next season, which is August, we'll say. We'll see if he's even there by August, we'll see. But regardless, I think it's more along the lines of going through all these motions and going to find. Well, the thing is, if they go Josh Rosen, they can build around him and have him a year off and keep. He had a year to start. He did terrible, not his fault, like I said. Have him go a year under Eli, and then go, because it seems like seems like Eli's last year. No, if this isn't Eli's last year, then I think they should just cut ties with him, because he's not good. Let's just face it. He's at a point where he's at an old age. I mean, let's see. He was drafted number 1 in 2004. It's been 15 years, roughly. And, like, I know Brady's been around longer, but Brady is just, well, let's face it. Brady's been aging like fine wine, while Eli Manning's been aging like milk, except for 2 seasons where he won a Super Bowl. And let's face it, 2007 could have been a fluke run in theory. They kind of got lucky with the whole David Tyree catch, but Eli Manning did get out of multiple sacks in that play, so I'm not taking anything away from him. They did win that one. But in 2011, if it wasn't for Kyle Williams fumbling the ball twice on the punts in the NFC Championship game when they were playing the 49ers, then who knows what would have happened. So you can easily take away one of those Super Bowls when you're thinking about what-if scenarios. So with that being said, I would definitely say Eli Manning maybe should call it a career after this season. It sounds like they're going to keep him, but the most I give him is 2 years tops. I think he doesn't need any more years. Plus, he's one of the wealthiest quarterbacks in the league, so it's not about the money, obviously. He's got his 2 Super Bowls. He's basically edged in the Hall of Fame already. So he's just on borrowed time, honestly. So that's just my opinion and my guess on how that's going to go. And with that being said, if they do go for a Josh Rosen, is he just as valuable as a Dwayne Haskins getting drafted by Dwayne Haskins being drafted? And if that's the case, and if that was their plan, drafting, in the first round, Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State, does that mean they're willing to trade their first-round pick for Josh Rosen? I honestly don't know. There's different key factors in this. Or What would you get rid of? What would you trade for Josh Rosen? Second round pick, third round pick? That's the question. Like, if they are shopping for Josh Rosen, if he is available in a trade, what are you giving up for him? What are the Cards even thinking about offering or getting for him? Because are they thinking they could get a first-round pick for him, or are they thinking they can just get maybe multiple second, third-round picks, maybe a fourth in there too, like just something to build up a team around Kyler Murray, who sounds like he's going to be the drafted one if Josh Rosen is being shopped. There's like all these different options of what's actually going to go down, and it sounds like to me the New York Giants are the ones that are going to be the main fit for Josh Rosen. I really don't see where else he could be traded where he could shine. Maybe, just maybe, the Patriots, because the mock drafts also have them taking a quarterback with the last pick. That could be a Drew Lock or a Daniel Jones, one of those two. Drew Lock actually seems to be the third quarterback taken out of the four that are like the main ones available. So it sounds like to me that Daniel Jones is going to end up a Patriot in many mock drafts. So that's one thing. But I would not be surprised if the Patriots did trade for Josh Rosen and make him the backup for Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady's still got a couple years left in him, but he's basically going to be the Jimmy Garoppolo, because they drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, in the second, third round, something of that nature. And he was supposed to be the future quarterback for the Patriots when that time came. So are they going to think about maybe we should trade for Josh Rosen, a guy that's already had a year in the NFL as a starter, was very bad, mainly not his fault. He had a bad team around him. We can groom him underneath Brady. We can have Belichick work with him, and he could be our next franchise quarterback. But again, there's options for the Patriots in that circumstance when you have a very fresh class of quarterbacks, four of them. You're probably going to get one of them. Obviously not Kyler Murray. I think he's ruled out because they have the 32nd pick, unless they trade up to like the second pick, or they try to get up the first pick, which I think is impossible. And then you take out Dwayne Haskins, who seems like the second best quarterback available in the draft by a lot of people. So that's gone. So it's all based on like who's going to drop more, Drew Lock or Daniel Jones, Duke or Missouri. You know, that's the age-old question, what's going to happen. But are they going to say, we don't really want to risk, or maybe we want to draft someone that can help us win now while Brady's still here instead of his replacement? So we'll trade for a replacement for the future so he can see underneath him and basically have him as our quarterback for the future without wasting a first-round draft pick on him. I don't know what the actual scenario is, but there's a lot of different options. And every option I could think of for Josh Rosen, he's not going to be a starter if he's traded, because no team is going to risk trading whatever they're asking for, the Cardinals-wise, to make him the starting quarterback right away. I don't see Jacksonville doing that. I don't see Miami doing that, because it sounds like they need a quarterback too, because Ryan Tannehill's as good as gone. I don't see, let's see, who else needs a quarterback? I mean, you can maybe see the Raiders involved in like a backup for Derek Carr in a sense, in a theory. But I don't know. I'm just thinking of random scenarios that could work in this situation. But again, this is this is not even confirmed by the Cardinals themselves. I don't think it'll actually be confirmed by them at all. I think if it was going to be confirmed, they'll be like, we have a trade. They'll announce it when they officially have a trade for Josh Rosen. That's when they will announce it. If that's even the case. We really don't know what the case is. But regardless, we have a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to that. And then you look at Antonio Brown's situation. But speaking of that, we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we will be talking about Antonio Brown's situation, as we had some quote-unquote favorites that to take him are now out of the sweepstakes for Antonio Brown. And we have some new ones in there, I believe. And it's just a whole different scenario. We really don't know where he's going to be ending up. And it might be happening sooner rather than later. So we'll get right on that when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Just finished talking about Josh Rosen and his possible open market shopping that the Cardinals are doing to see what they can get for him. If that's the case, they're going after Kyler Murray. That's just a foregone conclusion. So moving on from that, we have to talk about Antonio Brown again. Because what the Steelers have been saying is they're looking to move him relatively soon. They're looking to do this as quickly as possible. They're like saying, get your deals in now. We want to get this done. We want to get this moving. So it seems like when the next season officially begins on next Wednesday, so we have 7 days, it seems to me that Antonio Brown on that day on Wednesday, this is just a prediction, this isn't like confirmation or anything, that he's going to be dealt by Wednesday. And when I say Wednesday, it just seems like the Steelers just want to get this done as fast as possible, rip it off like a Band-Aid and move on. Because this just seems to be a huge, this is all the news has been. The Steelers have been in the news, well, I wouldn't say negatively. I feel like that's a little harsh. But I will definitely say they're in the news for the wrong reasons they don't want to be in. And what I mean by that is they're not getting quality players. They're losing a franchise player, a franchise wide receiver, a franchise running back. In the span of a week, they're going to lose both of them. Well, Le'Veon Bell's gone. That's first and foremost. Le'Veon Bell is bye-bye, see you later. He's probably going to be a Jet, not the actual gang like in West Side Story. But I would personally love to see Le'Veon Bell in a leather jacket doing the snaps like a Jet. I would think that would be hilarious. But besides that, where Antonio Brown's going to go is a mystery. Because the two teams that I honestly thought he would go to, the Jets and the Cardinals, are both out. It's reported that they're both out of the sweepstakes for Antonio Brown, and they're not going to make a trade or they're not going to make a massive deal for him. So the Jets had the opportunity to sign Le'Veon Bell, which they still can do, and trade for Antonio Brown. They could have two of the best Steelers on their team. Maybe they'll just have one, which is fine. Which would make Sam Darnold look so much better. Because not only will he have a great two-way running back and where he can catch the ball as well as run the ball in Le'Veon Bell, who can easily get 1,000 season. He'll also take care of Antonio Brown, who, if he needs to throw the ball deep, I think he's got the arm for it, can get the ball to Antonio Brown, and he can have a huge season himself in the receiving game. I can see Antonio Brown having more than 10 touchdowns receptions in this season. I can see Le'Veon Bell getting 3 or 4 touchdown receptions this season, maybe even more. I can see this as a major, obviously, getting both of them is a major addition, just based off of the facts that they're both arguably the best at their position. Le'Veon Bell is a question mark just because he's been gone for so long. I get that. But with that, I do have to add, if the Jets don't get Le'Veon Bell, because they already seem like they're not getting Antonio Brown. That's what's reported, at least. If they're not getting Antonio Brown, and they don't get Le'Veon Bell, is this a failure for the New York Jets this offseason? I would say yes. Because you have tons of cap space, one of the highest, and you don't get the best running back in the free agent market who you're heavily favored to get. And you could have given a very good trade offer to the Steelers, which they would probably take, and you would get Antonio Brown as well. You can afford both those contracts. Like, a team can have two $20 million contracts and still be able to do some other stuff on the side and build around those guys. Because you have a quarterback and a rookie contract, and you've got a very young, talented defense that can only get better. So, and you have your two quote-unquote max deals. They're obviously not max deals, but you know what I mean. Just like your two high-paid $20 million+ contracts with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. You can win games. You can win the division, in theory. You are going to be a thorn in the Patriots' side in the AFC East if you manage to get these two players and make Sam Darnold look like a superstar because he has so much talent around him. But, again, this is one of those things where you're looking at it, and this is NFL Madden or Madden NFL scenarios where it's like, oh, I'm just going to force a trade to get Antonio Brown, and I'm going to give Le'Veon Bell all this money because I turn off the salary cap in franchise mode. But the thing is, even with the salary cap, they still have a lot of money, and they can totally afford Le'Veon Bell. I think they're going to pull that one off. They're probably going to give him roughly 18, 19, maybe even up to $20, $21 million a year. They can afford it. And they could afford Antonio Brown's contract as well if they go for the trade. But it looks like they're not going for the trade, so I see this as a huge missed opportunity for the New York Jets. But if they get Le'Veon Bell, I ain't complaining. I wouldn't be complaining if I'm a Jet fan or just part of the Jets organization, because just getting one of those playmakers, one of those guys you could build a franchise around, is a huge addition to your team and a possible, I'm not going to say it guaranteed, but a possible threat to the New England Patriots AFC East dominance. So with that being said, the other team that actually is out of the sweepstakes is the Cardinals. And with the Cardinals, which seems like they're shopping for Josh Rosen, if they were getting Kyler Murray, who can throw the ball deep, would have been a great combination with Antonio Brown. So that is also a missed opportunity. But if I'm the Steelers, I'm assuming, this is just an assumption, or a guess, or a theory, a prediction. No, so something along the lines of, it's not 100%, obviously, but if they were talking with the Steelers, the Cardinals, that is, I can almost guarantee you that they were asking for the number 1 overall pick. And, of course, the Cardinals were like, get out of here. No way. And they were probably saying, okay, how about next year's pick? Well, we're still in a rebuild mode. So, no, that's going to be a high pick most likely, regardless if we have Antonio Brown, because their rebuilding period is probably a 3 to 4 year plan, and they're not going to next year be a great team. So they're probably going to be in the top 10. I would say from 5 to 10 if they had Antonio Brown. But without Antonio Brown, and if they have Kyler Murray, I still think of them from 1 to 10 is still a very big possibility, and 1 to 5 is a bigger possibility. So with that being said, I do assume that the Cardinals were asked to give up a high draft pick, the number 1 pick this year, or the next first-round pick next year, and they were just like, we cannot afford to lose those picks. Those are too valuable, even for Antonio Brown, so we can't do that. So The other teams there's just so many different other teams, like the Raiders are still involved. Last time I checked, the 49ers are one of those teams. But the thing is, the Steelers feel like they're in a rush. I honestly feel like the Steelers are in some sort of weird rush. It's quote, give your best offers ASAP. That's like a report that they said to give to the owners and general managers of different teams. Because I don't think rushing this is a very good idea. I understand rushing it to get this over with and move on. I get that part, don't get me wrong. But I do see it becoming, we got to get rid of him as fast as possible, and making a mistake. And when I mean making a mistake, I mean like trading just because you're desperate to get rid of him, and you trade for something for, quote, pennies on the dollar, and not getting the right change back, if you will, for Antonio Brown. So there's a big risk in there in what you're going to do for that situation. But that's just the news for Antonio Brown sweepstakes so far. We'll probably get more information tomorrow, Friday. Obviously before next Wednesday. So we got 7 days before the league officially starts. And we'll see how all that goes down. But moving on to more offseason moves, the Ravens surprisingly cut Eric Whittle. And they signed him to a big deal after he left the San Diego Chargers when they were San Diego and became the LA Chargers. He did not want to go to LA. He wanted to move on, which makes sense. So cutting Eric Whittle is actually quite a surprise. I thought he would finish his career in Baltimore. He's had some blunders. Like, you see him getting slower and slower at the safety position. And yeah, there are some negatives, but there's still a lot of positives to Eric Whittle. He's still a very good quality safety. But him getting into free agency adds to the list of very talented safeties that are available in this offseason. We have Landon Collins, who's probably not going to be franchise tagged, so he's good. There's a 99% chance he's going to be a free agent. We got Matthew, the Honey Badger, who's a free agent. We have Errol Thomas, probably the most notable free agent in the safety class, if you will. And just with those three guys alone, that's extreme talent right there. So, with that being said, who's gonna is teams gonna go mainly like, okay, we're gonna go after Earl Thomas first. If he doesn't take our offer, we're gonna go after Eric Whittle or Matthew, and if we don't get him, then we go after Whittle and so on and so forth. Like, is there a 3-step plan? And like, okay, first choice doesn't work, we go second choice. If that doesn't work, we go third choice. Is that the plan now for a lot of these teams looking for safeties? Because a lot of teams need safeties, obviously. In these three, I think there's more. Landon Collins, Eric Whittle, Earl Thomas, and the Honey Badger. So 4. So there's 4 very good quality safeties that can really boost a team's defense. But the question is, what are they going to be asking for? I don't think Whittle's going to be asking for a lot of money. Landon Collins, that's a good possibility. He might be asking a lot of money. Earl Thomas might be asking for a pretty lengthy deal. Money-wise, maybe not length, maybe like 2-3 year contract, maybe $5-6 million a year. This is all guessing. And then there's the Honey Badger, who's probably looking for a long-term contract for a lot of money because he's been playing pretty well in Houston, so he does kind of earn it in theory. But that's all up to anyone else that sees it. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot of very talented free agents, not just in the safety department, but the safeties are just a taste of what else is available, obviously. But regardless, I think there is a fact that, those 4 players are going to be very highly touted as or just hot commodities in the free agent class. And it's like you're at a shopping mall and you see a big sale and stuff you like. They're going to be the 4 items that you're like, ooh, I got to get at least one of those. That's kind of how this situation is going. But with that being said, we're going to take a break and we're going to stop with the NFL talk, and we'll move on to the NBA as we have some talk about the Golden State Warriors and then being destroyed by the Boston Celtics last night. And we'll talk more about that when we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Now we're done with the NFL talk. Let's go to the NBA talk. As the most surprising thing that happened yesterday, Celtics kicked the Warriors' behinds as it was the biggest loss in Steve Kerr's career, era in the Warriors as the Warriors head coach, as they lost 128-95, a 33-point loss to a Boston Celtic team that, honestly, I thought was heading downhill. But Gordon Hayward kind of gets revitalized, scores 30 points off the bench. Kyrie gets in a double-double with 19 points, 11 assists. It just seemed like, and Jason Tatum dunked on Kevin Durant, and he was left wide open in the middle of the, right underneath the rim, that it was actually kind of a joke how open he was. But regardless, and then DeMarcus Cousins gets so upset he starts pushing everybody around. He pushed like 3 different guys, which was unnecessary. He was back to his upsetting ways. And DeMarcus Cousins was upset. He was 0 for 5 from 3. He was 4 from 12 from the field, which is a lot of inside stuff. So he just disappointed. Curry had 23 points, 4 of 10 from threes. He disappointed. Kevin Durant with 0 for 5 from threes. Everyone that shoots threes didn't make threes, and everyone disappointed on the Warriors side. Them just getting under 100 points is shocking enough. But them just losing by that much is absurd in a way where everyone's hoping that this is the end of the era. But unfortunately, it's not going to be. This is just a minor step back. And with that being said, I think this is just a hiccup in the era of the Warriors franchise, era of the Warriors dynasty, if you will. So, with that being said, I think that obviously the Warriors are going to be moving on from this game, not letting it affect them, and just, still being first in the Western Conference, obviously. And, hate to say it's still for haters of the Warriors, but they're probably still going to go back to the finals. This is just a minor hiccup in their season. But this is huge for the Celtics because they've been kind of lackluster recently, just unmotivated, it feels like. Just looks like stuff was going downhill. But this huge win against the best team in the NBA really shows that this team still has a lot of talent on it, and it still has a lot of fight left in it, and this team can still be a dangerous foe when it comes to the Eastern Conference, excuse me. And with this win, or I guess they kind of moved down to 5th place last time I checked, but with this win, they are still in 5th. And, it says they dropped down to 5, but it's just one of those things where I think they were ahead of Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is now ahead of them. It's kind of a back and forth there. But they're still 8 games ahead of Detroit. So they're fine for the time being. You should just honestly, they should just say the Bucks, the Raptors, the Pacers, 76ers, and the Celtics all clinch a playoff spot. I mean, there's no way those guys are coming back. And then you look at the Western Conference. I mean, everyone's close, man. Let's look at first place. The Warriors are 44 wins, even with their loss. I mean, they have 20 losses on the season. People didn't think they were going to get 20 losses this season, but hey, that's still a pretty good record. Eighth best is 36. They're not even 10 games ahead of the eighth place, last place seed in the Western Conference for the playoffs. I mean, we have 3 different teams in the Western Conference right now with the identical records. Houston, Oklahoma City, and Portland all have 39 wins and 25 losses. Houston's on a 6-game winning streak. That's why they moved up to the 3rd seed. They're in the rankings at the moment. They're up above them. I think maybe based off strength of schedule, or maybe I'm not sure exact. Maybe series wins against certain teams. But then you look at the bottom 3: Utah, the Clippers, and San Antonio. 36 wins for Utah, but 27 losses. That's why they're ahead of the LA Clippers, who have 37 wins but 29 losses. And then you have the San Antonio Spurs, who's a game behind them at 36 and 29. And then not too far behind the Spurs, you have Sacramento with about 4 games behind them with 32 and 31. And then, of course, with Minnesota and LA having the same record at 30 and 34, and the Lakers having, I believe it's a 1.1% chance of making the playoffs. It seems like that's done for. So there is a lot of doubt with that team, obviously. So with that being said, I just don't really see Lakers or Timberwolves in the running at all. And I think everyone else agrees, because it just seems like this is as good as over. It really just seems like this is the end, you know? It's just weird to think LeBron's not going to be in the playoffs. Like, is this like... I don't want to say it, but is this the moment where we say this is LeBron's career ends? Not like legitimately, but just in general of like, is this where the downhill slide comes from, where he has to admit that he's old and it's time to quit? Obviously, I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I do, at least. He's still one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA. But I think he has to maybe admit after this unsuccessful season, I'll say that nicely, that he can't carry a team to playoffs anymore. And I think he realizes just how tough the Western Conference is compared to what he went through in the Eastern Conference. He kind of had a breeze through the Eastern Conference with ease based off it's less talented, let's just be honest. And when you're in a tougher conference, it's just a different scenario. And so maybe that's the reason he's dropping, because he underestimated the Western Conference and maybe thought he was wrong. So with that being said, one more thing before we end the show. Bryce Harper, during his conference introducing him to the Phillies, he said, I'm going to bring a title right here in D.C. Wait. Did he say D.C.? He knows he's not part of the Nationals anymore, right? I don't know. Do you think he thinks he's on someone else's team? I don't know. Did they drug him? Did they trick him? Would Jedi mind trick him into signing with the Phillies? I don't know, dude. But no, in seriousness, just a little blunder for him, and not a good start for the new franchise player for the Phillies, though, for sure. And he says he wants to bring in Mike Trout, so that's going to be an interesting scenario, to say the least. But I think that should be our show for the day. One more thing to add. Real Madrid, we're going to go a little bit of soccer here. Real Madrid, who have won the last 3 Champions League titles, I've lost in the round of 16 to Ajax, which is insane to think about. Like, usually when you see a team lose a championship run like that, it's in the finals or the semifinals or something of that nature. But losing in, like, the round of 16, which is basically like the second round in the NCAA tournament, if you want to use that as an example. That's a huge disappointment. And of course, losing Cristiano Ronaldo is one of those parts where that does affect them. Obviously, he's the best scorer in the world, so that makes sense. So it just shows that how much of a loss Ronaldo really is. But that is our show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And tune us in tomorrow. We'll have more stuff to talk about. And as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.